With the new Toyota LandCruiser in showrooms, you can pretty much guarantee that Lexus will follow up with a new LX. And here it is. The first time in 14 long years, there's finally a new LX range. And you're looking at it. But don't go thinking this is some cynical marketing exercise. While the LandCruiser is still the choice of adventurers everywhere, this car is for the sort of person who likes their adventuring on the luxury side. And just to back that up, this is now available in 7-seat, 5-seat, and a new super deluxo, never before seen 4-seat version. For those who like their adventuring to maybe include a chauffeur. But don't be fooled by the chandeliers and the butler. This is still a super serious, super capable off-roader. It's just that this time it takes adventure to new heights in feeling good and feeling rich. Now, if you're watching this video on YouTube, don't forget to ding the bell icon and subscribe to the channel so we can keep you up to date with more videos as they come along. And don't forget, you can also see the full written review of this car on the CarsGuide website. And we'll break this into chapters, so there'll be time codes on the screen. You can jump to the bit that interests you the most. The new LX kicks off at just under $150,000 and goes all the way to over $210,000 for the ultra luxury, a trim level and specification that we've not seen from the LX before. Lexus has loaded the vehicle with tech, and that runs from the infotainment systems right through to the off-road systems that extend to a 360-degree camera that even allows you to see what's under the vehicle. 20-inch alloy wheels are standard on the entry-level models, while everything else gets 22-inch alloys. And if that base model spec isn't enough for you, there's an optional enhancement pack that adds those 22-inch wheels as well as a sunroof and a kick sensor tailgate. Now, while we're used to paying more for diesel power, the new LX is a bit of an anomaly, costing around $3,500 more if you choose the petrol version. That means the base model diesel, the LX 500D, is priced at $148,800. The petrol base model, the LX 600, is $152,300. The sports luxury is $165,800 as a diesel and $169,300 in petrol. The F-Sport model costs $171,800 as a diesel and $175,300 with the petrol V6. The petrol-only 4-seat ultra luxury is $210,800. That's a lot of money, but it's also a lot of car. The LX's party trick this time around, I guess, is this super deluxo 4-seat layout, which you get on the ultra luxury model if you stump up the 210 grand. I imagine this is kind of what it's like up in first class at the pointy end of an A380, not that I'm likely to ever find out. But really, everything from the massage reclining chairs to the footstool, yes, the footstool, just screams luxury. It is a real experience to ride around in this vehicle, and trust me, glamping will never be the same again. The other interesting thing about this car is that it still retains a body-on-frame construction method, just like a conventional off-roader, because it is a serious off-roader. And the other thing I really like, it tickles my fancy, the starter button actually has fingerprint recognition. How very 007. If you want to move people, the 7-seat variants, the entry-level models, are the ones to choose. With a 2-3-2 seating arrangement, the third row now folds down into the floor and the second row folds and tumbles to max out cargo space. The 5-seat versions have the same second row trick, but presumably the owner of the 4-seat model, the ultra luxury, has a backup truck for the luggage. The front door openings aren't huge and you might have to twist your way in a little if you're tall, but once you're in, you won't want to get out. The one-piece tailgate is not as picnic-friendly as the horizontally split version of the previous model, and it's a big door without the power operation of the up-spec models. But here's a nice touch, a modern vehicle with a full-size spare wheel. While the LandCruiser 300 series is a diesel-only proposition, the high-end design brief of the Lexus LX called for a choice of petrol or diesel power. Choice is luxury, let's be honest. The diesel is the same V6 we see in the LandCruiser. It's 3.3 litres, twin turbos, 227 kilowatts and 700 newton metres of torque. The V6 is a similar size, 3.5 litres, still twin turbo, but it makes 305 kilowatts and 650 newton metres of torque. Still very impressive figures. The petrol is available across the board. The diesel is available on every version of the LX, bar the ultra luxury. The automatic transmission is a 10-speed and is hooked to a transfer case with proper low ratio gears, and that's what gives this vehicle, or helps give this vehicle, its rock hopping abilities. doesn't matter whether you buy the petrol or diesel in the LX, because what you're buying is a really smooth, refined driveline. That's especially true of the petrol, which is silky smooth, makes a pretty good noise, and it's powerful. It's actually quite fast for a vehicle of this size. Gets your attention. The diesel is good too. It's a sophisticated diesel and it is more efficient. It will use less fuel. The only catch is that the rest of the LX package is so quiet that every now and then, under load, you will get some diesel harmonics making their way into the cabin. It's not particularly unpleasant, but you can hear mechanical things going on, which you can't with the petrol. The same goes for the transmission, the 10-speed automatic. Now, modern electronically controlled transmissions are very clever things, and this one is no exception. It kind of second guesses you. It knows what you're about to do almost, and picks the gear that's right for that. The thing I would say though, and it's not a huge issue, it's a mental thing, because of Australian roads and Australian road speeds, the 10-speed transmission will almost never select 10th gear. Pretty much it'll drive like a 9-speed transmission. But long after you've forgotten about that, you'll still be marveling at how smooth this thing is and how brilliant it is at getting this big car moving. The ride quality is a little firm at first. That's a function of a lot of unsprung mass with these big wheels and tyres and heavy duty suspension, and the fact that this is a tall, heavy car. But after that, bigger bumps really start to make the suspension work as it should, and it irons out pretty much everything. The turning circle is actually really good. It's quite small for the size of the car, and although the steering's a little bit light, that's actually a function of this vehicle's off-road ability. So that's an observation rather than a criticism. Speaking of the size of the car, yes, it is big. It is big to park, but with all those cameras and sensors, it's a lot smaller to use in an urban sense than you might imagine. And is it luxury and is it high-end? Boy, is it ever. This is a really classy driving experience. The thing that will set the LX Lexus apart from the rest of the high-end SUV world is the fact that this car will take you a lot of places. It is a seriously capable off-roader. It was designed as an off-roader. It has a transfer case with low ratio gears. It has the adjustable height suspension. It will go pretty much anywhere you are going to point it. And the hill descent control program and the crawl program are actually really effective too. For the first time, I'm in a vehicle where I would actually feel comfortable using the hill descent because it's so user-friendly and so accurate. It's really effective. And that's going to save a lot of people who are a little bit iffy about steep descents and steep climbs on rough territory or loose surfaces. The car's got the electronics to bail you out, and that makes it really user-friendly. I like that a lot. The limiting factor with the off-road ability of this vehicle in the end is going to be its tyres. Now, this car's on the optional 22-inch alloy wheels. The standard base car is on 20s. Neither of them are on a proper off-road tyre. All these tyres are very road-oriented, and they're not going to cut it in the bush. The first thing anyone will do is put better tyres on it. The good news there is that the aftermarket tyre industry has kept pace with vehicle trends, and you can now buy good quality all-terrain tyres in a 20-inch fitment. And once you have put proper tyres on it, I think this car would be an absolute fantastic family touring rig. I wouldn't hesitate to take it across the Simpson Desert. I wouldn't hesitate to take it up the old telegraph track to Cape York. And I reckon you'll run out of brave pills long before this car runs out of ability. It would be a grouse off-roader. One of the things that occurred to me about the LX pretty early on was that even though it's taller, wider and longer than the old model, it doesn't feel that big to drive. Whether that's clever choice of colours in the exterior or some really clever surfacing work in the design that makes it feel trim, taut and terrific, I don't know. But it doesn't even feel that big inside. There's plenty of room, but it doesn't monster you the way some really tall, heavy vehicles can. And that's a really good trick. It's a very neat trick and one that they've managed to pull off. So full marks there. Just makes using it every day that little bit less stressful. One thing that really impresses me about this car is the detail work that Lexus has put into it and the effort that it's put in to make it different from the LC300 LandCruiser. Obviously it's based on that vehicle, but you wouldn't really know it from in here. Everything I'm looking at, every piece of information I'm getting, every switch, every control is different to a LandCruiser, and that suggests great attention to detail. I love the fact that they've gone that extra mile. The dashboard is that classic Lexus Tag Heuer sort of looking speedometer and tacho unit. There's twin screens and they both work very well. And there's a head-up display. Head-up display in a vehicle like this is absolutely gold. It's a nice luxury touch, but it's a really practical touch. And there's other stuff too, like paddle shifters. Now, paddle shifters might seem like a waste of time in a big luxury vehicle, but let me tell you, when you're off-road and you're trying to get the vehicle to go places that gravity doesn't want it to go to, you better believe that being able to shift gears without taking your hands off the wheel and having full manual override of the transmission, which this one does, is absolutely worth its weight in gold. Nice work. Now, here's something interesting, and I'm playing with the drive modes as I'm telling you this. I'm swapping between comfort, normal, sport, and sport plus. But Lexus has chosen to launch this car in Tasmania, and I'm heading back to Hobart on what is, apparently, a Targa Tasmania stage. Now, letting us loose in a 2.6 tonne SUV on a Targa stage is either lunacy on Lexus's part or a stroke of genius. And I'm inclined to think it's the latter, because in Sport Plus, this car feels a lot smaller than it should do, and it is actually a lot more manoeuvrable than it should be. The turning circle, again, is very tight and it saves it. And I'll tell you what, this is actually reasonably good fun. You're not going to set fastest time of the day, don't get me wrong, and you can't rewrite the laws of physics. So even though this car's got a lot of electronics to keep you out of the soup, you could still get it wrong. So there is still a degree of caution to be exercised. But the fact that this car can be hustled along and it's an entertaining drive and it's not a chore to drive means that it's a much more usable car day to day and in an urban environment. If you compare this to an old school off-roader, which were all door handles and elbows, this thing is so much tidier and so much neater and so much more fun to drive, it's not even a contest. These things have come a long way. Now, here's a niggle I have with this car that probably not too many other people will let you in on. But in order to keep weight out of the car, the bonnet, front guards, the roof, and I think the tailgate of this car are made from aluminium. Okay, great, pulls 100 kilos out of the car. Awesome. But the bonnet, because it's so lightweight and it's quite thin, you can actually see it shimmering. The surface is just flexing a tiny bit, and it's just enough for me to ruin the sense of solidity and quality. And it's a tiny thing, and it's my OCD. Don't worry about it. It probably won't bother you, but it annoys me. And I just think for the sake of another groove in the bonnet, it wouldn't have done it, and I'd be happier. Then again, I dare say I'm not Lexus's target audience for a vehicle like this. In fact, if I walked into a Lexus showroom, I think I'd be shown the door. The front door, not a car door. Lexus claims official combined fuel consumption figures of 8.9 litres per 100 kilometres for the diesel and 12.1 litres per 100 kilometres for the petrol. In reality, they're the numbers you're more likely to see on a highway run, not a combination of highway and urban driving. We manage closer to 12 litres per 100 kilometres in the diesel in the real world, and the petrol will use at least a couple of litres more every 100 kilometres. The fuel tank is a handy 110 litres, except for the base model diesel, which carries only 80 litres. The new LX hasn't been crash tested by ANCAP, but it does carry a huge list of safety gear. As well as the increasingly common driver aids, the LX can identify both pedestrians and cyclists, and even road signs, and it can actively keep you in your lane, as well as offering a bit of a helping hand when you need to fling the steering wheel in an emergency move. There's also a set of electronic eyes helping you avoid a crash when turning across an intersection, and the adaptive cruise control will slow the vehicle down in corners if it thinks you're travelling too fast. The terrain monitor system that uses cameras to see all around and under the vehicle will be a huge bonus in off-road work. Lexus recently went to a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty to catch up with the rest of the world. But the LX still lags behind the competition with a service required every 10,000 kilometres or 6 months, about twice what most of the competition specify. Cap price servicing is available and covers the first 6 services at $595 a shot. There's absolutely no doubt the new Lexus LX makes one heck of a statement. It has all the luxury you will ever need and the off-road abilities that very few vehicles from any manufacturer will even get near. The question for me is, does the 300 series Toyota LandCruiser do the same job at a better price? And inevitably, for some people, that answer is going to be yes. And for that reason, I'll give this car 7 out of 10.